Jesus spoke to the thirst she could not hide. That is what makes the woman at the well so much more than a story about water. Because sometimes a person is not only making bad choices, sometimes they are living from a thirst that has never really been healed. A thirst for love, for rest, for relief, for worth, for something that will finally quiet the ache inside. And when that thirst goes unhealed for too long, it starts shaping a whole life. It sends a person back to the same comforts, the same attachments, the same distractions, the same empty wells, hoping this time it will finally be enough. That is where this story begins. The woman comes to the well in the heat of the day, alone, because that is often what shame does. It does not only wound a person, it teaches them how to hide, how to move through life without being seen too clearly, how to carry on, but keep the deeper places covered. So this is not just a woman coming for water. This is someone carrying a history, someone carrying weariness, someone carrying a thirst that has been with her for a very long time. And then Jesus speaks to her. He crosses every wall that should have kept him distant. The wall between Jew and Samaritan, the wall between man and woman, the wall between the religiously accepted and the morally complicated. And he begins with something simple: water, because that is often how he works. He starts with what is near, what is ordinary, what seems almost small, and then gently, he reaches deeper than the surface. When he says, "Everyone who drinks this water will be thirsty again," he is not only speaking about Jacob's well, he is speaking about life, about the ways people keep returning to approval, to pleasure, to distraction, to relationships, to escape, to whatever seems to quiet the ache for a little while, and still remain thirsty. The wrong wells can start to feel necessary when the soul has forgotten what living water is. And then Jesus says, "Whoever drinks the water I give will never thirst." Not because life will never hurt again, but because there is something in him that reaches deeper than all the places we keep going to for relief. A spring deeper than coping, deeper than performance, deeper than image, deeper than temporary comfort. Then the story turns. Jesus touches the part of her life she would rather leave untouched. "Go, call your husband." And here is where the beauty of the story begins to shine. Jesus tells the truth, but he does not crush her with it. He sees the history, he sees the pattern, he sees the thirst beneath the pattern, and he stays. That alone can heal something very deep in a person, because many people quietly believe that if the truth about them were fully known, love would disappear. That if God really saw everything, he would step back. That if the hidden parts were brought into the light, tenderness would end there. But Jesus does the opposite. He lets the truth stand in the open and his presence remains. To be known and not cast away can begin healing something very old. And now this is healing. To recognize that the God who sat beside that well, speaking gently to a thirsty soul, is the same God who is now with us by his Spirit, still inviting us out of hiding and into his presence. Sometimes healing begins there, not in having every answer at once, but in realizing that the one who met her then is not absent now. That the same voice that spoke gently in John chapter 4 still knows how to reach a weary heart today. Then he takes her deeper still. She asks about worship, about where God is to be found. And beneath that question is another one many people still carry. Can someone like me really come near to God? And Jesus begins healing even that. He says the Father is seeking worshipers, seeking, not merely tolerating, not keeping his distance, not waiting coldly behind a wall, but seeking. Sometimes one of the deepest wounds in a person is not only their sin, but the picture of God they have carried with it. A distant God, a stern God, a difficult to approach God, a God who feels far more ready to judge than to draw near, a God only for the already clean. But Jesus reveals a Father who comes near, who tells the truth, and still offers living water. And that kind of revelation can make the soul breathe again, because people hide from the God they imagine. But when Christ reveals the true heart of God, fear begins to loosen. And by the end of the story, the woman who came alone does not stay hidden. She leaves her jar, she goes back to the city, and she says, "Come, see a man." And that is not a small change. Because when shame begins to loosen, a person often starts finding their voice again. She does not leave with every question answered. She leaves with an encounter. And maybe that is how healing often begins. Not all at once, not with everything solved, but with the soul slowly realizing, I have been seen, I have been known, I have not been turned away. God is not what fear told me he was. There really is living water. She came carrying a jar. She left carrying a revelation. Because when Jesus reaches the real thirst, healing does not begin on the surface. It begins deeper down. It begins where a person is fully known and still met with living water. So if you have been living thirsty, maybe begin there. Bring the hidden ache into the open before God. Tell him plainly where you keep going for relief. Ask him to show you the thirst beneath the pattern and to retrain your heart to return to him first. Healing often begins there, not in pretending but in being honestly known.